Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's show. This is High Strangeness in the Liminal Abyss, and I am your show host, SHETAN Noir. And that was my black shuck barking at the cat. She's not a Yule cat because she's not black, but she might just make herself known. Okay, say hello to everyone, Kyla. Okay, there's Kyla Cat. Okay, so this week's show, I thought I would talk about a case study that I've been pursuing for about 10 years now. And it involves a cryptid that has been spotted at various times here in Michigan. And the first time I got a report of this creature was about 10 years ago. I was doing an event up in northern Michigan. And when I say northern Michigan, for most people in Michigan, northern Michigan is anything past Saginaw. So northern Michigan for me was um, up by the West Branch area. So I was up there doing a presentation for an event, and I had an older woman approach me who informed me that she had been a real estate agent in the area. And this is actually northwest of West Branch, about 45 minutes northwest. Um, and she said that several years prior, there had been an incident with her neighbor. Her neighbor had been doing yard work and suffered what she claimed was a heart attack. So her and her husband helped get him into the ambulance, and then um, the wife wanted to ride with her husband, so they got into the ambulance, and then the neighbor who had come to me to tell me about this drove one car, and her husband drove the other car that belonged to the gentleman who was in the ambulance. Hope that's not too confusing. Um, Reason being is when you take an ambulance to the hospital, they don't bring you back. So you have to arrange transportation. So it just made sense that they would follow each other up there. Now, the ambulance was leading the way, and her story goes that they were about 20 miles south of the hospital going on 127. And they clearly saw something approaching the passenger side of the road. And this creature was huge. She described it as being about the size of a camel and the color of a camel, but not a camel. It had a big head with these little tiny ears, and she thought she could see a tail, but it was quadruped. It was on all fours, and it bounded across the road and just one leap over one lane, touched down the middle of the highway, and then was over onto the other side and dashing off into the woods. And she had no one in the car with her because her husband was following her in the neighbor's car. So they got to the hospital. They got the neighbor unloaded, and there was just an uncertainty, she said. So she stopped one of the ambulance drivers, and she said, "Did you get a good look at whatever that animal was that crossed the road in front of us?" And he said, "Yes, but I really like my job, and I'm not going to say anything." And she said, "Well, could you just confirm for me the details of it? Did it have hooves? Did it have paws? Did it have, you know, what did its feet look like? And he said, I'm not sure. And he really wouldn't give her any real details. Now she had seen this creature come up to the road, leap in front of where the ambulance was going to cross over on the other side and go into the woods. She had seen all that from her vantage point of driving behind the ambulance. But the ambulance driver and the EMT who was assisting refused to give any statement. They just wanted to ignore it and um, not discuss it because they felt that it threatened their job. So she held on to this information for quite a long time because there was a recession going on, and she knew that that might affect property sales in the local area. And she wanted to make sure that she wasn't the reason for a decline in real estate sales. So she kept it quiet. So she brought me all the information and told me all about it. And I thought it was an interesting report because she said it wasn't no bear. She went back the very next day, her and her husband, they're avid hunters. They went back, they looked for any paw prints, anything. And because it was November, they couldn't really see any tracks along either side of the road and it going into the woods. But she said it to this day, she still doesn't know what exactly to call it. So that was my first report of this creature, the beast of old 127. But he's not just in that area because about 2 years later, I receive another report. And this is from a dad who is taking his sons to soccer practice. And he said, we're in Midland, we're driving through, farmland to get to the school. And he said, my son pointed out that he said, Dad, what is that? He said, and here was this large animal running up to the side of the road. And he said, it was almost like a comical fox, but the biggest fox you might ever see. This thing was bigger than a bear. And that immediately got my attention because, okay, we have the right color, reddish brown, you know, the camel color, depending on, time of year, we can go, camel or reddish brown fur, can have different colors depending on the time of the year. So I'm like, this is very interesting. So he said what stood out to him was it had these little tiny ears on top of its head. And he said that was what made it almost comical looking to him, was the fact that here was this massive creature with these itty bitty little ears. He said it had a tail and that it was running on all fours and it was fast. And he said it came across the farm field, ran across the road about 50 feet in front of them. And they're trying to watch where it's going. And when they get to the area where it crossed, they're looking across the road into the field and they don't see anything else. The creature is completely gone. And this gentleman sent me this report and he said, you're probably going to think I'm crazy or I'm making this up. And I said, no, I actually have another report of this creature, but that report is higher up in the state. But now we've got a bigger territory that these creatures seem to be wandering around in. Which leads me to my newest report, which is western side of the state of Michigan. Nowhere near, oh, nowhere near um, the first report or the second report. It's actually kind of middle of the state from there. And the report goes that the woman was going up to the cabin that her family owns to open it up for the springtime. And while she was up there, she started to hear animal sounds from the woods around the cabin, which she thought was normal. And she thought, okay, I'll lock the front door. Maybe it's a bear. Maybe it's coyotes. Could be deer, whatever. So she locked the door. She was still cleaning in the house, um, you know, opening up the windows, airing the house out. And as she was opening up one of the windows, she caught sight of a orangey colored, and her words, orangey colored, which could also be reddish brown or camel, depending on who you're talking to. She caught this orangey red flash going past the window. And she thought, well, what the heck was that? So she's looking through the window, and she's trying to see. So she goes to the front part of the room, and she's looking out that window, and then she sees something just on the edge of the woods, and then it was gone. And she reported to me that this thing was about the size of a bear, but she had never seen an orange black bear before. Now, black bear do come in some different shades. There's your black bear, and then there's some brownish colored bears. Um, Sometimes they have a little bit of tan on them, but certainly nothing orangish red. And the camel color, or the color of a camel, keeps coming to mind, whereas that reddish blonde color, but not brown, not red, not orange. It's somewhere in the middle. And she claimed that she saw this creature. Now, I highly doubt that these three reports are being made by the same person. The one report I got was from a person in person. She gave me her written statement, told me all about it. The other one was an email, and I've never really talked a whole lot about the beast of Old 127. But now it seems like there is a bigger territory for these creatures, and I'm beginning to suspect that there's more than one. So, what could this possibly be that is the size of a camel, the color of a camel, but variations of like a fox red, an orangey red, which once again, when we're talking about color spectrums in animals, those colors all kind of work together with seasonal color changes. Has very little ears, just little tiny ears on top of a big head, shaped like a bear, can leap across roads in 2 bounds, and has a tail, but that one's debatable because the reports, they say it might have had a tail, but I'm just assuming that it does have a tail. So there's a creature out there running the farmlands and woods of Upper Michigan. We'll call it Upper Michigan. Um, that people are starting to get sight of, and I am getting reports of. So if you're traveling the back roads, or the farmlands or the state parks or national forests of Upper Michigan, just be aware we do have a cryptid out there that doesn't quite fit into any categories. So, if you encounter the beast of Old 127, maybe I should give him a different name. But for right now, we'll just call him the beast of Old 127. Let me know, and we'll see how many other people have seen this creature. But until then, go out there and explore this world and stay curious out there. Until next week, have a great night. Bye.